everyone. Welcome to today's Knowledge webinar with Stage, Real-Time Rendering Revolutions. Join us for an insightful webinar exploring the crucial role of real-time rendering and visualization in industrial and product design. Discover how Stage, built on top of Unreal Engine 5 by Trapdoor Creative, revolutionizes the industry by offering both speed and fidelity in rendering. As I mentioned, today's webinar presenter is the CEO of Trapdoor Creative, Barry Zundel, and he will showcase how Stage empowers designers to achieve unprecedented efficiency and quality. You can see how Barry Zundel is has an incredible pedigree. He's been working for Disney before, Pixar, Nike, and we are very privileged to have him present today. And now let me tell you a little bit about Knowledge. This is our product page where you can find Stage. And I want to remind you that Knowledge is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, offering more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. Not to mention that you can always reach us on the phone for any questions, any trouble, prorated licenses, you name it. So check us out at knowledge.com. And now, without further ado, I'm going to pass the screen and the microphone to Barry. Take it away, Barry.
All right, can you guys hear me? Okay.
We can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna do this real quick. Let's say, show it here.
Okay, we can see your screen.
Can you see me okay?
Absolutely, we can see your screen, yeah.
I'm gonna turn on my webcam here just so I can see it.
Very nice.
Well, great. Well, it's good to be here with everybody today. I appreciate the time to talk about Stage and talk a little bit about the power of real-time rendering. I'll give you a little bit of background. So my name is Barry Zundel, CEO of Trapdoor Creative. I've been in 3D for a long time, going on 30 years now, and seen a lot of change in the 3D creation environment, all the way from super slow rendering all the way to real-time rendering now, and everything in between. And so really excited to talk about Stage and why we built it and what it is and how it can help you in your workflows. So just a little bit about Trapdoor Creative. We've been around for about 10 years, mostly as a service company where we work with large brands, we work with small brands, any companies to create 3D experiences, interactive 3D experiences, anything like that. We do AR, VR, we do interactive media, we do animation and rendering. We also build software, and that's where Stage is from. So just a little bit about us as a company. And so we're excited to get Stage out there and help everybody understand what real-time rendering is, because we really feel like it's the future of what rendering is going to be. So just a little bit about myself. Like I said, I was at Disney Interactive making video games for a long time. I was a character artist there and basically did everything. So it was modeling, animation, rigging, cinematics, tools, all kinds of stuff in video games. After that, moved over to Pixar, where I was a character TV or technical director. So worked on movies that you probably already know: Brave, Toy Story Terror, The Good Dinosaur, things like that, and was a character lead on that, working on modeling and rigging the characters with the animators. After that, I took that understanding from Disney in video games and Pixar in movies and took that to Nike. And at Nike, I was what they call a 3D lead. So my job was to take all that knowledge of understanding with what was going on in the 3D space and help them transition to a full 3D workflow in apparel and footwear and everything like that. So it was a great place to start to understand what product design and development was, how 3D fits into that, and really kind of solidified my view of the need for real-time rendering in 3D, especially when it comes to product design and development. So anyways, just a little bit about me. Now, where Stage came from, let me give you kind of a background on this. Was at Disney Interactive doing video games, you have fast iteration. You can work quickly and see immediately what your work is doing. That interactivity allows you to iterate very quick. You have customer involvement. Your customer is actually interacting with what you built. what you created. And but one of the weaknesses is that there's less realism in it. Video games, obviously 20 years ago, did not have the great graphics capabilities that they do now. And so there was a lot of learning there. Then going to Pixar, there was this amazing storytelling, right? What we can tell, what kind of stories we can tell with 3D, how we use characters, how we use objects to tell an amazing story. And that was really photorealism. And you could take these characters and you could take objects and whatever it was, whether it was cars or Toy Story or dinosaurs or whatever we were working on, and not only tell an amazing story, but make them look just incredibly good. But that was really slow, and I'm sure it's sped up by now, but that was a slow process. You know, you'd have to send your renders off to a render farm and wait for them to come back. And also the pipeline or the workflow was very technical, very difficult. And so there were some things that I learned a lot from the experience of Pixar, but it was an amazing experience for what we were able to do. Then moving into Nike, in Nike with product design, it was very high detail. So you wanted to create that shoe and you wanted every stitch to look right, every lace on that shoe to look right. You wanted the midsole to look just right, or the materials to look just right on the apparel and fit just right, and make sure that the seams were right, all this stuff, you just wanted detail with it. But the pipeline was pretty fragmented. So it was tools for very specialized tools to do apparel, and specialized to do footwear, specialized for this and that, and then trying to put those pieces all together in something like Maya or Cinema 4D or things like that. It really created a slow iteration process where it was difficult to put those pieces together and to create stuff at volume. And with product design and development, you have to move really quickly. There's seasons, there's releases in those seasons, there's multiple SKUs, all kinds of things. And so that slow iteration time meant that 3D you can use 3D to do some cool stuff, but you can't do it at volume because it was just too slow. And so that meant that when it came to visualization, we were very limited with the time of what we could do. And so rendering, especially, just rendering took so long when you're talking about materials and large scale formats and everything. So putting all these things together, what we did is we pulled the good things out of each of them. What were the benefits of each of those things, whether it was video games, movies, product design and development, and the 3D pipeline around that? How do we digest that all into something that can be used very simply and very easily? So that's where Stage came from. With Stage, you get fast iteration speeds, you get full interactivity, you can have people involved in it with you because it's interactive. You can tell stories with it. We're looking for photorealism now in real time, and with real-time ray tracing, we can do that. But also very high fidelity, high detail product design. We want to see those high details. We want to see what those look like and how they fit with that product or what you're rendering. And I want to be able to see that immediately. So that's really what Stage does for us. So that's really the kind of the genesis of where Stage came from. And when we were looking to build Stage, the first thing we thought about was what is the very best real-time platform that we can put it on, and that's Unreal Engine. And at the time it was Unreal Engine 4, now we're on to Unreal Engine 5. And one of the reasons why we gravitated to Unreal was because of that real-time ray tracing, the quality. We really wanted it to be photoreal and a process where you can take your 3D data and you can get it in easily. You can see it with multiple lighting setups and all of this, and I'll show you in the demo all about this. But we built Stage on top of Unreal Engine, and the nice thing about that is Stage can leverage all of the incredible horsepower that Unreal Engine 5 provides. There's so much inside of Unreal Engine 5 that we can do to streamline 3D processes and really make them work well. And Unreal Engine just allows us to do that. So that's really why we built Stage on top of Unreal Engine. So we're really excited where the future is going with that. Now, this world that we live in, and you may be in any one of these things, 3D is starting to encompass all kinds of products and all kinds of different industries. So from fashion to manufacturing, metaverse stuff, entertainment, VR, AR, Web 3.0, all of this, there's more and more. Everybody's starting to use 3D tools. And the biggest problem is that the volume of that 3D starts to get really big, but you want to see it. And rendering and visualizing that 3D data becomes very difficult. It's something where just the sheer volumes of it becomes, you have to have specialized teams to be able to do that. And so what we really wanted to be able to do was kind of democratize that and allow anybody to take 3D data and visualize that however they want to. So in that product development process, we see a lot of steps. And whether you're developing a bike, whether you're developing a handbag, a tent, a boat, like it doesn't really matter what the product is. There's this process, and that's design, sample, manufacture, marketing, and then sales. And each one of these, there's components to it that where you have 3D data and you have things that you want to showcase, but there's a process there that you have to go through. Now, traditional 3D rendering technologies like offline render systems, they're great. They do an amazing job. Things like V-Ray or Arnold or Octane or other renderers, Cycles in Blender, those kinds of things. They're great and they're wonderful rendering technologies. The problem is the time it takes to render with those, while faster than normal, GPU rendering, all of that kind of stuff, it's not truly in real time. And so that limits the amount of rendering that you can do, limits the amount of visualization that you can do. And so that process means that a lot of optimization needs to happen along this. So it's very slow. And what I found at Nike especially, and this is with product companies that we work with all the time, is that utilizing these traditional render systems, they give you great results, but it really limits what you can do because there's so much time spent with it. And so we looked at real-time rendering and we said, how does it solve these problems? So it can be expensive to do that. So expensive to use those rendering technologies that take a lot of time because time is money. So with Stage, you look at each one of these. In the design stage, you can do live visualization. Under sampling, you can do hyper fast volume rendering. So no more like, well, we'll only render 1 or 2 of these things because that's all the time we have. For manufacturing, you can have live collaboration and communication. Marketing, it could be simple and fast media creation. So you want to create a shot for Instagram or for Twitter or for TikTok, whatever it is, and you want to create those really quickly, you can do that with Stage because you can literally render on the fly. And then when it comes to sales, creating those interactive sales tools and customer experiences in e-commerce, this starts to fit into that realm. And so Stage, we really tried to look forward and say, how does real-time rendering affect the whole product creation process? And not just products, but like whatever you want to do. If you have 3D, render it, visualize it, see what you can do with it. And so that's really where it is. So really the key benefits of using Stage is the speed. I mean, I've spent a lot of years of my life waiting for rendering and waiting for visualization to happen. And now we don't have to do that with the tools that we have. Simplicity is another thing. We made Stage very simple, and you'll see this in the demo. Stage, we just wanted it to be something that anybody could jump into. You don't have to be a 3D pro. If you're a 3D pro, you can go a lot deeper. But if you don't have 3D background, you can still get in and you can create images and renders and everything that very simply and very quickly. For example, we have a client that is a large industrial client. Like they have 3D files of their tools, but they don't really do anything with them. Well, once they got a hold of Stage, they're now taking that data and they're doing renders for their brochures and their website and all kinds of stuff. And the one that's doing it is one of the people in marketing. They never had 3D background. So that's what we wanted it to be, is simplicity. The last thing is cost savings. We want Stage to be so fast that you can do way more with less money in the 3D space. And so that's really what we wanted it to be. Now, we work with a lot of companies, and one of the things that we did, one of the first companies that we started working with was Patagonia. And this is just from Ian Finch at Patagonia. He says, the V-Stitcher and Stage integration, this V-Stitcher is an apparel design software. Advances any digital product creation pipeline. Any brands looking to render decision-making assets at speed would find Stage a compelling visualization tool. The software is intuitive and provides a low barrier of entry for any apparel teams looking to be able to leverage Unreal Engine and its capability. Now, this is apparel, a sportswear company, but this works no matter what kind of company you are, no matter what project you're doing. The idea is that 3D data, getting in, moving fast, and visualizing really quickly allows you to move at a rapid pace, which I think everybody wants. Everybody wants to save time and save money. So now let's jump into a demo real quick. So I'm just gonna let's do this. Get out of this, and I'm just gonna bring this up here. Here we go. So this is Stage, and hopefully you can see this. Stage, once again, is meant to be very simple. We wanted the interface to be really simple. We wanted it to be very easy to use. And we wanted it to be something where you don't have a million buttons and a million options and everything. It just does what you need to right away. So the first things first, it's all in real time. It's all meant to be something that you interact with rather than something that just kind of is there. You work in it, you hit a button, you walk away, and you get a picture back. This is fully interactive. Now, what you see right here, I'm going to zoom back in this scene, is actually a full 3D photo shoot scene. We call it the sweep. And this is meant for doing those traditional photo shoots, those digital photo shoots. Now, one thing that we've really tried to do with Stage is we said, hey, look, Stage is an opportunity where when you don't have a physical product, but you have a digital product, that you can take that virtual product or that digital product and work with it in a photo studio just like you would a real product. And so we really wanted to replicate that. So as you can see, this is a full 3D scene here. This isn't just, you know, a backdrop that you're rendering on top of. It's a full 3D scene. And so I'm here in this sweep. I can come in here and I can change my scene. Let's go to this house out in the desert right here. And you've got real-time water. You've got sunlight. You've got the ability to change the sunlight. So I can go into here and I can change the time of day to whatever I want, like this. And it affects the rendering capabilities. I can also change the weather. Let's make it snow. So now it's snowing in my scene, like this. I'll bring some products in just a second, but I just want you to see like what we're really trying to do is make a fully interactive environment. And so we want, whether it's snow or rain or lightning or whatever it is, we want you to be able to put it in an environment where you can really kind of explore. And so think of it like a live video game level. We don't like to talk about it like a video game just because it's basically that has connotations to it that we don't intend, but that's what it really is it fully interactive capabilities and fully interactive scenes. So I'm going to go back over here to the sweep. There's a bunch of other scenes that I've downloaded. We have downloadable content, so there's stuff that comes with Stage. These are some of the scenes that come with Stage. We have scenes, we have metahumans, so if you know like Epic Unreal Engine metahumans, Epic metahumans, we have a set of metahumans if you're doing apparel and you want to use vStitcher or Clo, that those work with this. We have HDRI levels, I'll show you that here in a second, and also material libraries that we're going to be, and these are all going to grow. And so the other thing is if your company is looking to build something where you're like, we want Stage, but we want a snowy mountaintop to put our rock climbing apparel or our mountain climbing apparel on, or we want a really cool racetrack to put our e-bikes on, or whatever it is. We also do service work as well. So we do project work. So we can create those and put that content up on Stage for you. And that way, if your company, let's say your company wanted a specific scene that looks a certain way, we can create that scene, build that scene, put it into Stage, and you're the only one that sees it. Nobody else from outside your company sees that. You're the only one that sees it and can download it. So just some things that we're able to do inside of Stage, and we're able to load these kind of at runtime so that you can use them. So this is all the downloadable content right here that you can get inside of Stage. Now let's go back to that sweep real quick. Now, one thing I want to talk about is what kind of files can we get into Stage? Now, Stage is expanding with file types, but the main file types that we can import and we fully support are FBX, GLB and GLTF, and OBJ. Those three file types, and Datasmith. If you're using if you're using like a CAD program and you want to use Datasmith, that's also available to use Datasmith. So those main file formats can be ingested into Stage. So for example, if I just open a model here, I'm going to pull up this GLB file. Now these are all GLB files, but we could do FBXs or OBJs or whatever. I'm going to open up this this file right here. Now you'll see it just loaded it right here. It's actually a tiny wristwatch. So I'm just going to click on it here. I'm going to hit F to frame it. And now you'll see this is what's happening in real time. This is what we're getting in real time. Okay. Now, let me do this real quick. I'll change it here. What you notice is that this is all happening in real time. The reflections, the lighting, the shadows, all of it's happening in real time. And this is using what's called real-time ray tracing. So real-time ray tracing and traditional ray tracing, which we call path tracing, are slightly different. They do basically the same thing. One is an approximation, and one is like a brute force, like every light ray in the scene. And so the nice thing is that what we're doing is we're leveraging both of those. We're leveraging the real-time ray tracing to make sure that like these shadows are correct, the lighting is correct, the reflections, the materials, everything is correct, physically correct. But it's doing it as an approximation, so it's very fast and very interactive. And you can see how I'm just clicking and dragging. There's no complex hold, shift, alt, middle mouse button or anything. It's literally click and drag like this to do it. So that real-time ray tracing, and then there's also called path tracing. Now, both of these, I'm just going to turn on path tracing real quick here. Both of these are, what they're doing is they're bouncing light through the scene. You probably already know this if you've been in 3D, but they're bouncing light through the scene and picking up the energy from where those rays are going. So you'll notice like under here, right under here, you'll see this little green spot right here from the manipulator. That's because in the scene, it's actually seeing that green manipulator and bouncing it off there. So it's very physically accurate. And you can do this real nice path tracing, or you can turn that off. And this is super fast, high-speed real-time ray tracing, or we call it RTX. The hardware that you need to run stage is, we'll get into that towards the end, but it's all about the video card and what you can do with your video card. That's really the important part. So please ask questions. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Just put them in the chat and I can answer them for you. So as you can see here, I just imported this GLB file, and it can be from anywhere. I think this one came from Blender, I think. Then if I open up another one, let's say I do this mountain bike. Now this was a CAD file that was then edited, I think in Moto or Blender, I don't remember, but you'll see like this is a really high detailed bike, and you'll see like even the bike chain, just the detail that's on here is awesome. I need to give a shout out to the person that built this, I forget, but it's up on CG Trader if you want it, but it's a great model. They did an amazing job at building this. But anyways, that just came in, so I could say like, well, if I'm designing bikes, or if I've got a scene where I need to have a bike in there, I can just pull that down from Sketchfab or CG Trader or Turbo Squid, anything like that, or I could build something on my own inside of Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, whatever it is, and bring it into stage for real-time rendering. So you can see here. Now I can move these wherever I want to. So there's my watch. I'm just moving this anywhere. Or I could grab the bike and I could move that bike anywhere in the scene as well. And what you'll notice is the shadows. The real-time ray tracing does real-time shadows. So for example, if I show the lights in my scene, these are the lights that are actually here. They are big, large box lights, And what that means is that I get these really nice soft shadows in here. And so that gives me that really realistic kind of grounding look, that kind of diffuse lighting. So we'll talk about lighting here in just a second, but as you can see, I can bring in different models. I can do this too. Let me open up a sofa, right? So if you're making furniture, if you're designing furniture, here's a sofa model that we brought in here. And you'll notice, like as you're moving this kind of stuff around, you're getting all those accurate shadows up against it. The lighting is reacting appropriately. And so that's what we really wanted stage to be. We want you to get into stage, bring your data into stage and interact with that, create lighting, create scenarios, all that kind of stuff, but do it really fast and fully interactive so that you don't have to wait for any of that rendering to happen. So now that I've got some models in here, actually, let me open up one more. I'll just show you, like, this comes from VStitcher. So BrowseWorks VStitcher. So it was simulated here, and I'm gonna pull this over here. And I'm just gonna add one of these metahumans to it. So it's this one right here, and right here, I'm just gonna hit add. And now you'll see, like, she's actually blinking and looking around. It can be a little creepy. It's kind of that uncanny valley, but what it does is it brings that to life just a little bit so it doesn't look so static. But that's what we can do in a real-time environment versus something like your Cinema 4D or your Keyshot or something like that. We're really able to leverage the real-time aspect of it and add that into the experience. So now that I've got some things here, I'm actually gonna, let me just do some lighting changes on this. So let's say I wanna give it some more dramatic lighting. I have in my lighting some defaults. You'll see these defaults right here that come with stage. And you can use any of those. They're meant for more like a single object right in the middle kind of thing. So you've got butterfly lighting. which is this, which doesn't work with, she's a little too close. So let's click on her and move her over here, right there. But you'll see it, that's butterfly lighting. You can change the lighting to something like a high spot up here. It's like a really high spotlight. You can also go like a warm cool, and get that. You can get that warm cool look to it, and then you can also do like these other ones. So these other ones that we've got. But if I want to create my own lighting, it's as easy as this. I'm gonna say lighting, create new. It's all dark in here. There's just a little bit light up top so that you can see what you're doing. And then I'm going to say down here, the light rig editor, I'm going to name it. So we'll call it webinar lighting, like this. Oops, lighting. There we go. And now I can pick from lights that I want. So I'm just going to pick that softbox and hit add. Now, when I grab this, you'll notice, there we go. I move that out, and now it has a target that I can move it to. And as I move this light around, it's doing all of that lighting, that real-time ray tracing in real time. And so you get these soft shadows, you get bounced light, you get all the fun stuff that you can do in a real scenario, in real time, or in a physical scenario. You can do it right here inside of it. And I haven't hit a render button once. And so that means that I haven't had to wait for anything. It's all real time. So let's do this. I'm going to actually change this to like a blue, like a kind of a blue light like this. We'll put it over here. And then what we'll do is we'll create a new softbox, grab it, move it over like this. Maybe put the height up like this. I'm going to change the target to be more like her face, kind of like that. There we go. So now it's kind of fitting there, right? And now I can change the intensity, so I can boost that intensity up. I can rotate, and everywhere I go, it just kind of targets that target right now. So I can get it exactly how I want. So I could come over here and I can see exactly what my lighting is doing, right? And then I can come in here and just grab this and start moving it around and pick exactly where I want that lighting to be. Now, remember, the reason why we have this is because I haven't hit a render button yet. I don't need to wait for it to show me what it's going to look like in the render. This is rendering. And so because we're leveraging that really awesome Unreal Engine 5 capabilities, it means that we see this all in real time. Okay, so lighting is really quick and easy to do. You do not have to be a pro to do this, but what you can do is really set up lighting. Now, if I like this one, right, I can come in here to my lighting setup right here, and I come down to this webinar lighting, right? And I just want to make a tweak to it, but I want to leave this one. I can hit duplicate, and now what it is it's got a duplicate of that, and I want to change this to be a little more, let's make it a little more warm, right? So I'm going to take the temperature and pull that down a little bit so that my temperature is a little more warm. There we go. So now if I come in here and I want to switch between and see the difference, I can go like this. Here's my original lighting, and here is my copy of that. So I can really come in and I can tweak, like, and just play with lights and say like, oh, well, I want to take this one and do something else with it. I could also come in this one. If this is my copy, I could come in and I could say, well, I want to add another light in this one, and I want to put it like kind of a rim light. So I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to pull the target up. I'm going to pull the height up like this, and then I'm going to change my intensity up a bunch. So now she's got this rim light, and that's the same with like the bike, right? So now I've got this rim light along it. So you can really play and experiment with the lighting inside a stage. And it's very non-destructive because I can either use this lighting, I could duplicate it, I could go change to another lighting setup, and I can play around with that. So that's lighting. There's a lot more that we could probably go into. There's intensities. There's I can change the box width so you get sharper, and you can see the shadows down here on the floor. If you look at that shadow, right? If I bring that box really bright, those shadows get really soft. But if I bring it down lower, like this, they get a lot more sharp. So just like in the real world, these things are physically accurate. We really wanted it to be as accurate as possible with this. Okay, so that's lights. And lights, by the way, everything that you see here, if I come into lighting or animations, we'll talk about this in a minute, but all of this stuff, all of these follow you wherever you go with your account. They're not based on your machine that you're on. So if I go home and I start using Stage on my laptop or something like that, all the lighting capability, all the lighting setups that I have follow me to wherever I log into Stage. It pulls those down, gives me all that capability, which is great. Okay, so let's talk about animation real quick here. So I'm gonna keep this lighting here. And what I'm going to do is I want to actually create an animation. Well, let me say this first. We're currently working on being able to import animations from an FBX file or a GLB file or something, USD, something like that, where we can import animations. So if you have a bike that's like pulled apart or something like that, you can pull those in, and then we'll be able to animate and render those inside of Stage, but not quite yet. That's coming real soon. But what you can animate is you can animate the position of objects, and you can animate the camera. And so the way that that works is like this. It's very easy. So I'm going to close this light rig right here. Take a drink of water real quick. I'm going to close the light rig panel, and I'm going to come up to animation, and I'm going to say create new. Now in my animation panel, I've got the capability to do a bunch of things here. I'm just going to name it, so we'll call it webinar anim, like this. Now, normally if you're going to do an animation of something, you have to understand keyframes and interpolation and tangents and graphs and all kinds of stuff like that. While that is wonderful and that is powerful, we wanted to make Stage as simple as possible, to do as much as you could. Now, this will probably be changing a little bit in the future and giving you a little more control, but this will remain intact because we want it to be very simple. So you name it, you can tell it how long you want it to be. So let's say I want it to be 10 seconds, right? And I want an animation that kind of starts right here. This is my camera right here, okay, what I'm looking at. So if I hide this whole frame is my camera. So I'm basically setting my keyframe like this. I want it to start here, so I'm going to keyframe the objects and the camera. And then I'm going to pull out like this, and I'm going to make this my final shot. So now I can key the objects and the camera. Now, if I want to go back to that, I can just click the little I button. It goes right back to that spot. If I go to this one, it goes to that keyframe. So I can see where I started, where I ended. I can also decide, when I do this animation, do I want it to ease in, ease out? Or do I want it to just linearly like go from point A to point B? And that's just a personal preference. So you can pick what you want. So I'll just do smooth. And now if I hit play, remember, I haven't rendered anything yet. You can see how it slowly came in, and then it's taking 10 seconds to go, and then does a slow move out, and then slowly stops, just like that. And it'll just repeat, right? So that's how quick and easy it is to do that animation, and how much is to play it. Now, if I wanted to do something different, be like, well, I just don't like that end. I want to change that end. All I have to do is click on the end position, reposition it like this, because maybe I don't really care that she's in there, but I just want the bike. So there, and now I'm going to key both of those. So now it's going to take 10 seconds and do this animation. And just go to that point. So it's really, really easy to change your animation, make changes. You don't have to sit there and like do a play blast or do a recording or something like that. Just hit play, watch what it does, and there you go. There's lots of tricks that we can eventually, we'll show you how to do all kinds of things. But that's really the gist of animation in here. Now, remember, I can move objects. So if I come back over here and I say, okay, well, I want this to start right here, and then I go to this end, I'm actually going to move the watch right here, and remember to key the subject. Now, if I hit play, you'll notice it's now moving, right? It's hard to see in this animation a little bit, but what you can see is it's now moving across that animation as well. So I can not only move objects, and maybe I want to rotate it too. So let's hit here. Let's go to here, and then let's go to the rotate, or let's go to my rotation here. I'm just going to rotate on the Z. So it's like this. So it's going to kind of follow the camera, right? So I'm going to key all those. Now I do this. Now you'll notice the watch right here, it's turning as I do that. So you can sit there and just really tweak your animations however you want. You can play with position, rotation, scale, all of that kind of stuff, and really make the animations you want. But mostly, the animations are about the ability to create camera movement, right? Focus on showcasing whatever product it is. It's not really about doing, heavy character animation or anything like that, at least yet. But anyways, so that's really the key with animation. Now, remember, if I just hit stop here, I switch to linear, now it's just going to be a linear point A to point B, a straight line. It's not going to ease in, slowly come that way. So you can just sit here and play with it. So that animation was really easy to make. Now, let's move to rendering really fast. We're going to kind of jump around a little bit, but the first thing I want to talk about with rendering is the camera. One thing that we did in stage is we wanted the camera in stage to be as realistic as possible. We wanted you to be able to control all kinds of things. So if I just hit C on the keyboard, or if I come up to here and I say camera settings, I can come into my camera settings here, and now I'm dealing with all the things that I'm manipulating here. So if you notice, my view angle as I do pitch, it changes. As I rotate this way, is my view angle. And I can move the camera too. So I could say like movement in the X, movement in the Y. You can just dial it in like this however you want. But I can also change the focal length. So I can pick like, well, I want a more flat view. So I'm gonna go with like a 50 millimeter, right? Or even like an 80 millimeter, like this. Now I have a really flat view. When I roll my mouse wheel, it's actually panning the camera back. It's not zooming, it's panning the camera back, right? So it's changing this distance right here. So that's not changing the focal length. It's just doing this kind of thing. It's dollying the camera in and out. If I change that back to like, let's say 18 millimeters, woo, now I got really wide angle. So now I can get these shots that are like really wide angle like this, right? So I can do a lot of things like that. Let's go back to like a 45, pull it in. But the other thing that I can do is I'm gonna close the animation editor there. I can change the focal offset. So let's say I want some really good depth of field. You notice it's already doing it. So this tire right here is blurred, but this one is sharp. Right now, my aperture is a 16, which is pretty high, which means most everything is going to be in focus. The higher the aperture, the more focus there is. But if I drop that, let's say I go to like 2.4, you'll notice you get really shallow depth of field here, like really shallow. And so what I can do now is I can say, okay, well, I want to focus on this stem right here or this piece right here. I can actually come in here and instead of being on autofocus, because see, it's going to autofocus to it right there. If I pull this back and once again switch it back to 0, you'll notice that it's focused here. If I click on show focal plane, it now puts a focal plane out there and I can move that focal plane wherever I want. So I'm pulling that back and it's going to intersect with it right there. So I want it to be right there. Now, when I turn this off, you'll notice this is blurry and this is blurry. And then I can change my aperture to figure out like how much blur do I want in that shot right there. So just like a real camera, you're literally like looking through this camera and staging it the way that you want that to look. And so these are just important things here to understand about the camera, because you can really kind of take your artistic eye to the next level by doing that. Now, let's talk about aspect ratios really quick. Aspect ratio is what do you want to render at? Do you want it a 3:2? Do you want it a 2:3? Do you want it a 16:9? Do you want it a 16:9? What's the aspect ratio that you want? And that is determined. We have a few presets. So there's 16:9, 4:3, there's 1:1, there's 9:16, 3:4, all this kind of stuff. So if I go 1:1, you'll notice now my aspect ratio is a square. So like if you're doing imagery for Instagram or something like that, that you want a 1:1, now my setup is 1:1 and I can frame my camera to that 1:1 aspect ratio, okay? Now, this aspect ratio is just for viewing. But what I can do is when I go to my render panel, so I'm gonna come up here, go to render, and I'm gonna still. This resolution right here, what I wanna render, if I wanted to render a still, I could change this to 2000 by 2000, right? So 2000 by 2000 pixels. Now, if I close that, and if I come over here to my aspect ratio, sorry, let me come back to that tab real quick here. You'll notice, oh, whoops, here we go, camera. Here we go. There we go. The still now says 2000 by 2000. So that's the resolution that I want to do. And because it's a 1:1, it's showing up there. So I can set my render settings and then go in and make sure my aspect ratio of my camera is all set up correctly for it too. So that's kind of how the camera and the aspect ratio works. And that's the same with movies too. It says right now my movie aspect ratio is 1920 by 1080. So if I wanted to do that, I would set up a 16:9 frame like this and set that up. So the camera is very versatile. We wanted it to be as real as possible, and we're going to be putting more and more stuff into that so that you can really utilize that camera. One other thing about the camera is the ability to do some in-camera visual effects. So one of those is like bloom. If I wanted to turn bloom up, you'll notice I'm getting a kind of little bit of fuzzy look. And if I look directly in lights, you'll see that kind of bloom, that fuzz. I can change that. I can change exposure on it, so I could bring exposure up or down. just to compensate. I can also do what's called chromatic aberration, and this is one of those things that's totally overlooked, and it's totally it's not talked about a lot. But the issue, the thing that you want to think about is if you're trying to convey that your 3D is real, you want it to look as real as possible, not just from a 3D standpoint, but from a camera standpoint as well. And when you're using lenses, there's a little bit of lens distortion in those lenses always. And what that does is that chromatic aberration is where it gives you a little bit of split on the color. So if I do this real hard, you'll notice I've got a red fringe here and I've got a little bit of a blue fringe there. And that just mimics the light coming through a real lens. The nice thing about that is that means it gets rid of a lot of the CG look of your image when you go to render it. So you can turn that up, you can turn it off. It depends on your, what you want to do, but that's there. You can also turn on lens flares. For example, if we go to, I'm going to go to this HDR scene, and then I'm going to click on the background and go to this sunset beach, right? So you'll notice I've got bloom going here. And now if I go back to my camera, I'm just going to hit C, visual effects. If I turn up the lens flares, you'll notice all of a sudden, I've got these lens flares that are going. And this is all in real time, once again. That's the beauty of it, is this is not a post-process effect. We don't have to go into After Effects to do it or anything like that. It's all real time and capable there. So I can turn on lens flares just a little bit if I want to. And then what I can also do is vignette my image. So most of the time, if you're using, in real photography, your lens is going to get a little bit of vignette around the edge. The whole reason why we put all this on here is so that what you're rendering looks more like it's coming out of a real camera. And that is a function of what our brains do when we look at something. We go, that's familiar to me. That looks like somebody took it with a camera. That's real. And so that's really kind of what we did, was to make it so that it feels like it's coming out of a real camera, and the render does that. So all of these things translate over into your render. So if I did a still shot right here, I'm going to hide those lights. Let's do a still shot right here so we get the lens flares and everything in it. So I'm going to go to render. I'm going to go to still. I'm going to go 2000 by 2000, and I'm going to do this. I'm just going to render it right here. Actually, we'll do this. Okay, and I just named it whatever, but we'll just call it like render test, like this. Okay, and I'm just going to hit render. Now, a 2000 by 2000, I didn't have my aspect ratio, right? That was my render size, but I'm looking at it in a 16 by 9. So it zooms back so that it gets that 2000 by 2000, okay? So what I can do real quick is just go back to my render settings, switch this back to my 1920 by 1080, and then hit render. And now it's got that exact render for me. So there it is right there. Now, if I come up here to these renders, you'll notice here's my render test that was 2000 by 2000, and I had alpha channel checked, which I didn't really want, but it was checked anyways, right? Or this one where it's 1920 by 1080. Now, if I come back over here to rendering, you'll notice I have alpha mask checked. That means it's going to render all the objects, but with no background, just transparent, right? So anywhere there's transparency, it's going to render that. If I render that again, you'll notice how fast this goes. That's a full HD render going that fast. I'm just going to double click that. Here's my render right here. Okay, so you can see I showed the render and then hid the render, and you can barely tell the difference between the two. That's the power of real-time rendering, is that we're getting all of that immediately, and we don't have to do a render to see what it looks like. So once again, I'm just going to open this. This is the image that got rendered, right? Full size, and I'm going to hide it, and there's my real-time right there. Super close. Okay, so once again, that aspect ratio came into play. Okay, so we've gone over rendering. Last thing about rendering that I wanted to show you, I'm going to actually remove all these out of here just for a second. So I'm just going to hit right here. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to remove that, and just have her sitting right here. Now, one thing that we can do in rendering is do what's called batch rendering, and batch rendering allows you to do multiple renders all at the same time. So what I've done is I've set up these jobs, these render jobs, where I call it front. And what I did is I said, here's the resolution that I want. Here's the quality, here's all the settings that I want it to auto frame it. This is all details that we don't have time to go into, but I just want to show you. I can even pick what scene and what lighting I want to use and what view preset, and this is a front. And then I have it named appropriately so that it auto names everything. It's still. So I have all this set up like this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to check those boxes, and then I'm going to hit render, and you'll see what it does. So it's doing a 2000 by 2000 renders. So it's doing a front, and it's done. It's doing a back, and it's done. It's doing a side, right, left. And so really quickly, I did 4 renders, front, back, left, right, and this could be anything. It could be that watch, it could be a couch, it could be whatever. But I did that extremely fast, and as you can see, here's my renders right here. Front, back, left, right there. Super fast. Here's the quality of them right here. So I can just cycle through here, okay? So you can see how fast rendering changes the way that you do things. If that was gonna take me overnight to do, I probably would only do 1 version of it, and then I'd come back and be like, oh shoot, it was the wrong color, or it was the wrong lighting or something, have to do it all over again. Well, I can go back in and change the lighting right away. Just say lighting. Let's go with this butterfly lighting, and let's change the scene to the sweep. So it looks like this, right? So now I can go like this. I'm gonna go render, batch render, render again. And now it's gonna go through and do the same thing. That's how fast you can move. And one of the reasons why we did this was because we want 3D artists, 3D, whether it's CAD, whether it's anything that you're building in 3D, we want you to be able to visualize that and see it as quickly as possible. So you'll notice there was my renders. So if I pull over here, here's my renders. So now I have a back here, and I have a back here. Front, left, or right, left. So very quickly, I just generated these renders, and they're full 2000 by 2000 fully ray traced. So rendering is extremely fast, and that's what we really wanted it to be. Just a couple last things, and then I'd love to take any other questions. I don't know how many of you are typing questions in. So we've talked about lighting, we've talked about animation. Sessions is a way to save your current setup. So let's say I open these back up. So I'm gonna open up that watch, right? So it's there. I'm gonna open up this chair, the chair that I didn't have before. This one's kind of big. I don't know what the size is with this, but I'm just gonna change the size. There we go. So now it's a chair right here. And then let's say I just want to keep this all the way it is. I want the lighting, the scene, all the objects that are in there, everything. I want them all to stay there. Or I want to be able to come back to it. I can save a session. We'll call it create. We'll call it webinar session. I'll hit OK. What it did is it didn't actually package all that stuff up. The normal 3D package will say, well, I have all this data. I'm going to package it up into a file. What we did is we referenced. So it saves location references to those models. So it says, I found that chair on this disk right over here. I found that outfit with her here, found the watch over here. I'm gonna have the lighting a certain way and the scene and everything. And so then when you go back to reload that session, you can come back to it at any time you want. But it didn't save data inside of there. It saved all the location of those data. Now, if you move it, it just asks you, hey, did you move that? I can't find it. Tell me where it is. So that's all, that's really cool. Now, lastly, I want to talk about materials really quick. We've really tried to make a good, make materials that, I'm gonna turn on auto focus here just so you can see it better. Make materials that work really well and that have a lot of power but look very realistic. And those libraries are growing. Let's talk about materials here real quick. If I click on this chair, well, first of all, let's do this. Let's move this watch over here, put it up on this chair, and rotate it over here so you can see it. There we go. Like here. So now I'm just gonna click on it and hit F. Right there. There we go. Whoops, I hit the wrong key. Click on the model, hit F. There we go. Now, remember, my f-stop is really shallow. My aperture right here is 2.6. If I change it back to 8, it gives me a little more clarity. So one thing that you'll notice here on this watch is that I have a piece of glass that's missing right here. The glass material is missing. And this is the way it came in. So this is the way that I brought it in. If I click on that model, and I go to materials, you'll see these are all the embedded materials that are on the model. So if I click on them, it will highlight where those materials are. So these are like the little screw nubs there. These are all the materials. This is the metal, all that kind of stuff. And this model came, I think, from Turbo Squid, but amazing, really good, really great model. But anyways, you look at all these materials, you go, okay, this is the way it was, but I want to change that. So you can open up your material library here, and remember in the DLC, right here, we have material sets right here that you can download. This automotive one actually has a lot of cool stuff in it that isn't just for automotive. So for example, I want to fix that right there. I need a glass material. So I'm going to click on glass, and then I'm just going to drag this basic glass right on top of it. And you'll notice it's even doing refraction. So this is in fully real time. So you can drag that and drop that on, and I'm getting all that refraction that I would really get, because those little things on watches, those little glass pieces, it's meant to magnify, right? To really be able to see that. So I'm getting that in real time, being able to do that, which is just super powerful. Now, what I can also do is go into metal, and I can say, well, I want this to be a bumpy kind of metal. And just drag and drop that on. You can see what that looks like. Looks like kind of a bumpy metal. I could go full on brass and really see what that looks like as brass. I could do chrome. I can scan down here. This is kind of a nicer brass right here, but you can really see how quickly you can experiment with colorways. Now the nice thing is that it created what we call a colorway for me. I can edit that. We'll call it brass watch. This, okay. And that colorway allows me to then switch back. So I can switch back to embedded, and that's what came on embedded. So now if I come in here to a colorway and I say new one, and we'll go dark or like black or something like that, I can choose one of these like dark chrome materials. I can actually go into this material, edit it, come down to this mask intensity. I'm actually gonna take it down. So now you get this really nice black shiny material, and I can literally just switch through them here. This is what originally was. This is a brass version of it, and this is a dark version of it. And oh, I missed that glass. So let's drag that glass back on. There we go. So there we are. So now what I can do to render this is I can go like this. Okay, I've got these different colorways, and I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to go to render still. I want this still right here. I'm going to go render test. Here it is, and that's how quick it was to render. I'm going to click on it again and just go materials, switch to that brass version, and I'm going to go to render and just render it again. I haven't even had to change the name because it will actually put the numbers after it, right? And then I can just go to render. Oops, I forgot to change the material back to embedded. There we go. And then I can go render and say go. Now that's how quick you can iterate. And so really utilizing the reason why we built Stage was so you can move fast. I've said that a million times, but I want to reiterate that. And so what we hope you'll be able to do with Stage is bring your 3D data in, create different variations, create different lighting setups, create different scenarios that you want to put it in. You can even create your own scene if you wanted to. You could use a scene like, go into HDR, switch this to a white background like this, and then you could bring in all kinds of 3D elements that you want, walls, couches, plants, like whatever you want from libraries that you have, and that's going to be coming to Stage 2 soon. Libraries of all kinds of objects. But the idea is that you can do all of that stuff inside a Stage and then render at volume. So we really hope that you, as you look at Stage, you look at it as a way to take your 3D data, whatever it might be, whether it's apparel, footwear, soft goods, hard goods, electronics, manufacturing items, robotics, whatever it is, bring that data in and really showcase what it can do and what it's going to be. And it's super easy. We would love to hear feedback, love to hear any questions. There's a lot more that you'll be able to see if you go to our YouTube channel. I'm sure Noveg will have some more, but we're super excited to partner with Noveg on this as a reseller and get this out to you. We work with, like I said, it imports FBX, OBJ, GLTF, GLB, and Datasmith. So if you're using CAD programs that use Datasmith or can export FBX or anything like that, you can bring your data into Stage. We're actually working right now. We have a plugin for VStitcher, which is the apparel one right here, that's really powerful in the fashion space. But we're also working on one right now for Rhino. And that's going to be really cool to be able to have that plugin for Rhino. But it doesn't mean that without a plugin, you can't bring your data into Stage. If you can export one of those file types, once again, Datasmith, FBX, OBJ, GLTF, GLB, you can bring that data into Stage and you can use it. So we're just super excited to see what people can do and how this changes your workflow and how it changes your ability to create those animations. Last thing before we go, I just want to show you one last thing and how fast and easy this is to do. I'm going to actually remove all of, actually no, let's use that watch right here, okay? So I'm going to come in here on this watch, just like this. It's kind of floating. Let's do this, let's put it right down. Actually, let's put it on the ground. I'm just going to say, go to my translation Z and zero that out. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to actually remove this chair. And I'm just going to zoom in here on this watch, and I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to do a turntable. I want a turntable of this watch, so it looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to change the materials. Actually, I'm going to put that glass back in this one, right? Basic glass, put it right there. There's my colorway, and I want to do this. So I'm going to go animation, create new. We'll call it watch turntable. It's going to be 7 seconds long, and I'm going to key this and the camera and this and the camera, and then I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go rotation. I want it to be, actually, let's zero out that rotation like this, and let's go to, let's change the camera angle, so it's a little bit different. Now let's just change it right here, okay? So we're going to go right here. Oh, my camera. There we go. I'm gonna actually change it to focal or the focus. I'm gonna change it to auto, and then I can dial that in exactly how I want right there. Okay, so now I'm gonna say this one, and I'm gonna key both of them start and stop, but then I'm gonna click on the object and rotate it 360 degrees. Sorry, 360, there we go. And then I'm gonna key the object and the camera. Now when I hit play, here's my turntable, but now I want to render that. I want to show you just how fast this renders. We're going to do a movie. We're going to do 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames a second, so that's 420 frames of animation. And we're going to go like this. I'm going to call it turntable test, like this, and I'm going to say render. You can see here, right here, how fast those are rendering. Those are frames, fully ray traced, reflections, everything, refraction, everything. You can see the glass on that. There it is. It's all done. And now, if I open this up, here's my animation, 60 frames a second, that fast. Full HD, 60 frames a second, refraction, reflections, all the ray tracing, everything like that. That's how fast you can do that. So we just want everybody to be able to do this as fast as they can with products or whatever they're doing, and we're super excited for where this is headed. So contact Noveg if you're interested in getting a hold of Stage. They're an incredible team, and so we're super excited to partner with them, and we would love to hear from you as well. We have a Discord channel that you can jump onto, or you can always email us at contact@trapdoorcreative.com. But I would say talk to the Noveg team, and they can give you a ton of support, and they're awesome at that. So with that, we're all done. Yeah, thanks. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions.
Okay.
So is there a minimum, what about hardware specification?
Hardware, okay. Yeah, hardware. We recommend an NVIDIA RTX 3080 or above. You can go lower if you want. The stages for Windows right now, we're working on a Mac build. We're very close on that, but and I can get into that later. But the hardware is a Windows PC running Windows 10 or 11, 64 gigs of RAM or more. But the video card is the key component. So you need to have an NVIDIA RTX 3080 or above. And the more VRAM you can have on your card, the better. Because that's what stores all this data while it's trying to interact with all of it, right? So if you can get 16 gigs on a card or more, that's the ideal. Now, that being said, I have a machine at home that I run Stage on that is a 2080 with 4 gigs of RAM, and it still runs incredibly well. Rendering is slower, but running it live works great. So really, we recommend 3080 or above, 3080, usually a 3080, 3090 Ti or above on that with a pretty high-end PC. Basically like a really good gaming rig is what you want. But laptops work as well. I have a laptop sitting right here next to me that's a 3080 Ti laptop version, and that runs Stage incredibly well. So yeah, that's kind of the hardware that you're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And so a question about if it's Stage is a standalone product. I think you already answered that. And I'm very excited about your projects for plugin for Rhino, since we have so many Rhino users in our contacts, and that already
we're actually really close to opening up an open beta on that, and we'll be announcing that pretty soon. But we're gonna have an open beta for that plugin, and so stay tuned for that.
That is fantastic news. I want to remind everybody that I'm recording this session, and I will be placing on YouTube later today, first thing in the morning, and I will post the link of your Discord channel that Barry mentioned. I think this is it. This is so exciting. Talking about revolution, I
Yeah.
think I underestimated you. My bad. I'm really impressed. And I want to thank you again, Barry, today. What a treat. I'm going to
Absolutely.
take the screen back. So I want to show everybody again where they can find Stage on our catalog. Go to novage.com, search for Stage. As you can see, it's an annual subscription, and you can call us anytime if you want to, combine it with other product. You don't have to because it's a standalone product. But Novage is changing the way designers purchase 3D software. Just because you can talk to us, you can mix and match, and the service is excellent. Thanks again for joining us today. It was a real pleasure, and hopefully we'll have more webinars in the future. We're very excited, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Have a great rest of the day.